Okay, what up ladies and gents, it's your favorite Asian robot right here, hopefully your favorite Darktide YouTuber, and today what I'm going to teach you guys is how to build the Purgatus Brain Rupture Psyker. Yes, you heard it right. This build actually has a 74% win rate adjusted, okay, and because it actually tested well in missions or damnation missions with randoms, I'm actually publishing it, so many of you have asked me for it, many of you have asked about it, many of you have seen me actually play it on stream, and it has actually worked well. However, before we begin, I do have to tell you that this build does require a little bit of skill to use because you are going to use Brain Rupture, okay? So I'm going to explain how this works. We're going to go into the talent tree, and we'll go from there. All right, there's also some strengths and weaknesses you have to be aware of, but we'll cover that later in the video. First, camera vanish. And let's get right into it. When it comes to the Purgatus Brain Burst Psyker, okay, what I have figured out is that this is the ideal setup that I personally like the most, okay? So you want to grab Soul Stealer, so every time you kill somebody with a warp attack, you can replenish toughness. Quietude, whenever you quell, you replenish toughness. You want to grab Metal, because with this build, it's really easy to critically strike your opponents, okay? This will allow your critical hits to replenish more toughness and give you increased movement speed, therefore making your evasion better, okay? Perilous Combustion, every time you kill an elite or specialist, you apply Soul Blaze to nearby enemies. There's no reason not to have this. You critically strike very often, so perfect timing is natural. You will be able to increase your warp damage. Battle Meditation is a saving grace. Do not knock this, because when something dies to Soul Blaze, you might just get 10% of your peril quelled, which means you can fire off even more, okay? Toughness boost for survival. Brain Rupture right here. Grab Kinetic Resonance and Kinetic Flare. Kinetic Flare states that all attacks have a 10% chance on hit to Brain Rupture the target. Okay? This cannot occur at critical peril and has a cooldown of 15 seconds. So as long as it triggers, it's on cooldown for 15 seconds. However, it can be useful when there's just one boss going against you. Kinetic Flare it, you hit it with a Gout of Flame, watch the free Brain Burst pop, and then you can pop your combat ability and Brain Burst it even more. That's how it works, alright? So Kinetic Flare is great for boss damage. It can also save you in some weird situations. Kinetic Resonance, whenever you pop your combat ability, you will be able to make your Brain Rupture charge 75% faster for about 10 seconds. This is pretty decent and can get you a few casts. I'll demonstrate this later on. What you want is Wildfire here as well. Wildfire makes it so that when an enemy dies while affected by your Soul Blaze, nearby enemies will gain up to 4 stacks of Soul Blaze. They cannot gain more stacks than the dying enemy had. Why is this excellent? Okay, when you're burning out an entire horde, everything is going to have more than 4 stacks of Soul Blaze. So if something dips below that, Wildfire is absolutely excellent. It will just help you spread your Soul Blaze far and wide and just basically assist you with that entire situation. So don't knock Wildfire because it's really good for spreading the Soul Blaze, alright? If you do not like it though, you can put the point in wherever else you want. It's really up to you, okay? But Wildfire is very helpful. Psykinetics Aura, again, very useful. Whenever you kill an elite or specialist enemy, you're going to get 5% off your cooldown, which is great for having more shields. Seer's Presence, everybody gets 10% cooldown reduction. Absolutely fantastic. You get the Maelstrom with 20% cooldown reduction, and all of a sudden everything cools down really fast. One with the Warp, the more toughness, the more peril you have, the more toughness damage reduction. Again, very useful for helping you survive. Empathetic Evasion, whenever you critically hit, you will dodge all range attacks for 1 second. Absolutely excellent with this build. Not good while brain bursting, but you should only be brain bursting from within your shield most of the time, right? So Empathetic Evasion is more for when you have to spam your fire. You will critically hit very quickly and easily, which will allow you to dodge range attacks for 1 second. Yep. Toughness damage reduction here, Telekine Shield, grab Telekine Dome, and Sanctuary. Okay, so your shield will last 25 seconds. It's on a 40-second cooldown, and while within your shield, everybody replenishes 10% toughness. Alright, and when the shield dissipates, you will get 50% toughness damage reduction for 5 seconds. This is huge. Alright, sometimes when you're taking cover in the shield and the enemy shoot through it and it goes away, you get that 50% toughness damage reduction. It can be a huge saving grace. Grab critical chance boost, because of course you should. Grab a health boost here, Warp Rider, toughness boost, Empowered Psionics, Overpowering Souls, Charged Up, and this one is your option. Some people like to use Psychic Leeching. If you don't like it, grab Kinetic Deflection. It's up to you which way you want to go, okay? Some people prefer this, some people don't. I like to use this because I tend to get Empowered Psionics charges and it just helps me replenish toughness of my allies. I don't find much use in Kinetic Deflection because with this build, you are more of a boss killer DPS rather than somebody that should be taking on and deflecting the boss. Therefore, Kinetic Deflection, not so good for me, all right? So this is my talent tree setup and this is what I'm running right now. Are there any specific things you need to know about this talent tree? Yes and no. If you don't like Wildfire, right, you don't really have that many options. Okay, so what can you grab in place of Wildfire? You can go for toughness damage reduction, peril resistance, less peril generation. You can go for kinetic deflection if you really want it, or more range damage. There aren't a lot of very good options, honest to God, so you pick what you want. But for me, Wildfire is very useful because sometimes things die, and being able to spread that Soul Blaze really helps, okay? Excuse me. Okay, so now that you understand the talent tree, let's move into the loadout. This one is a bit weirder than normal because we actually make use of the Chainsword here. I'm not kidding. I did not go crazy. Yes, I'm not using a dueling sword with this. Why do I find the Chainsword useful? Well, this Chainsword in particular is extremely helpful for one-shotting muties, alright, which the dueling sword does not do unless it hits the head. This is because of the change made to Warp Rider, which actually happened last patch. So the dueling sword has underperformed a little bit because that 10% really made a difference. Now, when I think about it, the Chainsword actually worked better. I tried it out with this build, and I've been thoroughly enjoying it. So yeah, I'm not crazy. This actually works well. Now, what kind of perks do you want on this? Okay, when it comes to perks, the perks really don't matter. Okay? My honest recommendation is that in terms of blessings, the number one thing you're going to need is Bloodletter. The rest of your blessings and perks, take whatever you can get, but it really doesn't matter. I suggest taking perks that help you counter whatever is the biggest target that you have a problem with. But you do not need Maniac damage. I'm going to be very clear with that. You do not need Maniac damage as long as you have Bloodletter, okay? As you can see, without any Maniac damage, this particular sword will be able to kill a mutant. I will show you that right after we go through the stats. In terms of stats, oh, I didn't camera vanish. Sorry about that. Let me do that again. In terms of your stats, damage, finesse, shredder are the priority. Get mobility as high as possible as well, but you don't need 80%. Anything above 70% is good enough for you because you're never going to get 5% dodge distance anyway, and 3% dodge distance isn't really going to make a lot of difference to you. Okay, so anything above 70 is good, but your damage, finesse, and shredder must be as high as possible. Penetration doesn't matter as much. Okay, anything above 60 is good. I'd rather have reverse mobility and penetration, but it is what it is. This is fine. Okay, let me show you now what this thing can do. Alright, if you use the heavy version and you crit, this thing is dead. Alright, if you use the light swing, guess what? It's still dead. Alright, if you don't hit a weak spot at all, guess what? It's gonna die from bleed. Okay? So as long as you dodge the mutie and then you rip through it, it's going to die. This is why you don't need a Maniac Blessing. If you have Unyielding, funnily enough, you can actually one-shot a Reaper, thanks to Bloodletter. But you cannot one-shot the Ogrins unless you crit. Alright, it'll still take you about a 2-shot on a Carapace Armored enemy. So what do you do with Carapace Armored enemies? You brain burst them, plain and simple. For the Bulwarks though, because of Unyielding, if you just get one heavy swing on them, they're done. Alright? In terms of Maulers, you want to try and saw through the flak armored part, right? And they'll usually die to the bleed, but in general, you don't really want to be sawing through them very much. The rest of the targets you can literally just saw through. As long as the attack fully finishes, you're okay. Alright, as long as the attack applies the full bleed stacks, most things will die. And of course you could just burn them quickly, like that. And they'll die off. Yeah? But most of the time for Maulers, you'll be burning them with this anyway. Now, the important thing to understand about your ranged weapon is that the Purgatus Staff has certain stat requirements. They're not that easy to meet, but I'll still explain them to you, and I'll show you what is good and what's not so good, okay? It's quite rigid. It's quite rigid. Here we go. Now that we've covered the melee weapon for your Purgatus Staff, here's what you're gonna need. Now, the perks are must-have, and the blessings are also must-have, alright? So this one is gonna be much tougher to roll. You're gonna need ranged critical strike chance. This is a must-have, okay? In terms of your other perk, go for Maniac Damage. It will just help you against Ragers, things like that, which is just so helpful in stopping them faster. Okay, so damage to Maniacs, important. Range critical strike chance, important. Next, Warp Nexus is crucial. Warp Flurry, if you can roll a tier 3, it's good enough. But Warp Nexus is crucial. You must get this tier 4. Why? Critical, every time you critically strike with the Purgatus Staff, it applies double the stacks of Soul Blaze, which is really, really good. It means you stack up Soul Blaze faster and you keep your Soul Blaze maxed out on the enemy, which is how you burn out bosses really fast. Okay? In terms of stats, damage, burn, cloud radius, these three must be as close to 80 as possible. Okay? Your two dump stats are warp resistance and quell speed. Anything above 60% quell speed is good. Any warp resistance above 60 is good. Okay? Ideally, if you can get your warp resistance to about 70, that's good. But damage, burn, cloud radius, these are your priorities. Why? Damage is obvious. Burn will help you burn more. Your damage over time stacks will be higher. Your max stacks. Damage over time application rate will be faster. Cloud radius will allow your staff to go up to 15.9 meters, okay, and increase the area of effect as well. It also increases the area suppression, although that's not really important. Now, the most important thing to understand about the Purgatus Staff is that the Purgatus Staff has two firing modes, okay? When you're using the long-range mode, this is best for burning out hordes, okay? And when you critically strike, of course, you are going to absolutely destroy them. This is very lovely for destroying hordes, as you can see. Okay, everything's going to die. But what do you do when you've got a mixed horde barreling down on you? You press the left mouse button. The left mouse click can stagger anything, okay? Except for crushers. You cannot stagger crushers. You can even stagger bulwarks if you manage to hit them directly. You can stagger reapers. It'll take you some time, but you'll do it. All right. You can stagger all these guys. Everything can get pushed back except for mutie. Okay, you cannot stagger muties. But don't worry about staggering muties. You can stagger ragers, bursters. Every single thing is staggerable. Okay? So this is why people use the left mouse button. Also, it applies a fair amount of Soul Blaze. Okay? It applies one stack at a time, but it deals damage itself as well. So just stack it up slowly, and you'll notice them burning like heck very quickly. Alright? So don't hesitate when I see some of these tough guys coming in, I'll just burn them like this. I won't even bother charging up, because they'll all die soon enough and start spreading their Soul Blaze everywhere. You see? This is where it's useful. It's not so useful when you're doing this, because most things will just die to being swarmed by fire. Alright? And if you really want to spread Soul Blaze, the things have to die and then spread the stacks naturally. Alright? So just be aware of that. And you can just keep spreading stacks like that. Okay? So that is about it. That is about it. When it comes to the Purgatus Staff, just remember your big weakness is the Crusher, and that's what Brain Burst is for. Brain Rupture is for armored targets. What kind of targets do you want to use Brain Rupture for? You want to use it on targets that are like bulwarks, okay? So I'll show you some tactics later, but in general, bulwarks, you can get them to open up, and crushers, all right, these are the ones you want to open up the most, okay? We'll go through a little section talking about the strengths and weaknesses of this build a bit later, where there'll be a more in-depth discussion on Brain Rupture. But last but not least, I want to cover Curios. When it comes to Curios, you're going to want the standard Curios for a Psyker. Stamina, toughness, health, okay? For your perks, toughness, regeneration speed, damage resistance gunners, and for your third perk, take whatever you can get. Combat ability regeneration would be ideal, okay? So that's what I've got across the board. And these Curios do not change. They have never changed. Now, let's talk strengths and weaknesses. With this build, what you gotta understand is that you do have to have a high skill level. Why? Your staff only has a 16 meter range, okay? It will burn up to 16 meters, but in general, the range is actually closer to 15 meters. So if they're about this distance, you will barely touch them, okay? So you have to be aware that your staff generally, and this is with a maxed out cloud radius, all right? So you're gonna have to be aware that you can't just spam and hope that you'll burn everybody. That the staff doesn't work that way. Next, when it comes to armored targets, what you generally want to do is you want to quickly put this down. All right. Even with this, empowered psionics, right? You cannot actually one-shot a crusher. It will take you a 2-shot or a 3-shot, depending on how much warp rider you have and whether or not you've got empowered psionics charges. Now, how much of a difference does empowered psionics make? When it comes to empowered psionics, hold on, let's get 3 charges first. Okay, when it comes to your empowered psionics, you can deal 1,800 damage. This means that gunners will die. Okay, all gunners will die. Muties will not die. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I should probably kill these guys first so we can do a fair test. Now the shotgunners are guaranteed to die. The maniacs, right, will also die. Okay, so ragers will die in one shot with empowered psionics. It will deal up to 2,000 damage. Now the soul blaze is going to weaken this guy. This guy will not die though. All right. For some weird reason, I know it showed a white damage number, but it actually is hitting the weak spot. This guy will just not die because he's flak armored. All right, so he only takes 1,500. Pretty much any of these guys will die. All right, it will deal more than 1,400. But when it comes to a mutie, let me just quickly get rid of this. When it comes to a mutie, even with empowered psionics, you're only going to deal 2,700 damage. So it takes 2 shots on a mutie. So it's better to use your Chainsword for a mutie. Yeah. For the Reaper, oh man, it's even worse. Let's do it this way. Hold on. I should have cooled that down faster. My apologies. I forgot that I need 3 empowered psionics charges. Let me quickly take a cooldown stim so I can pop my ability again. All right. When you pop your ability and you go for a Reaper with empowered psionics, you can 2-shot them. Okay, this is only with empowered psionics. Same with the Crusher. Okay, once you run out of empowered psionics charges, that is not going to work. So what you want to have is empowered psionics plus, if you can, a high peril when you first initiate all this. So this way you can sort of take advantage of Warp Rider as well for the extra 20%. So just as an example, let me get a higher peril now. By the way, 1 big gout of flame will usually burn out ragers and all that. Okay, so once I've got a relatively high level peril, right? Assuming you've got empowered psionics charges, you can immediately start brain bursting and it will cost you nothing. Okay, assuming that you have empowered psionics charges. This is basically how you will be able to at least kill 2 of these targets really, really quickly. So sometimes in combat, I'll put down a shield if I've got an empowered psionics charge. I'll quickly pop a priority target and then get back to using my Purgatus Staff. So what you have to really learn is how to juggle in combat between your Purgatus Staff, your Brain Burst, how to use it effectively, and all that kind of stuff. All of this is demonstrated in the streams where I played this, but be aware that your Purgatus will never do anything against Carapace armored targets. Now, of course, Kinetic Flare, this is where it comes in. Assuming, of course, that Kinetic Flare can help you out. But no matter how much you stack the Soul Blaze on these guys, they're not going to take very much damage. So when you have a Carapace armored target, you know, either you're praying for that Kinetic Flare to trigger, or you just start brain bursting them. All right? Hopefully, your teammates can help you cover for the Crushers. That's the only thing you're going to struggle with. The rest, you can burn out easily with your Purgatus Staff. Okay? That brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I know it was a bit long, but there was a lot of explanation that needed to go into this. Quite frankly, I am not a great fan of this build because it still has a lower win rate. But is it fun? Hell yes. And does it actually work in the field? Yes. Test it in Auric Damnation with randoms. I can guide you to the stream with my Honor Guard. Of course, I've got 100% win rate, but that's pretty much guaranteed with almost any build. All right. Thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you want to see more content from me, I'll be very grateful if you do that. Now, the last thing that I'm going to do is start to thank every single person who has made all this stuff possible. As you know, we always give shout outs to our channel members. We give shout outs to all the people who have been top supporters. So let me begin. All right. Starting right at the top, we have our top tipper Gator Guy. Our top tipper list consists of Leo Reinhardt, Cheryl Danville, thank you guys so much. Top super chatter, 6 Guns All, Orange Shivs. Top super chatter list, Chanel Name, Ganzalope, Jonas Gustav, Tommy Reed. Top channel membership gifter, Nightshade, thank you so much. Nisk, you're also in the top tipper list, by the way, thank you so much. And now, starting right at the very, very top, my homie Nisk has reached the OnlyFan level. Now, it's only for a month, but thank you so much. Nisk is now the top channel member. We also have Death Dawning 982 Plus Ultra. We have got Arcane Silver, Akuh, Chanel Name, 6 Gun, Yuri, Jerry Fast, Rogue Assassin, Zach FG, Prestige. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to all of our honored robots as well. Thank you to Orange Shivs, Nightshade, Sleepless Night, Rapto, HD Pork, Matchstick Jim, Gator Guy, Saya, Wild Hunt, Timbo, Simple Spider, Kaloum, Albert, Tello, Twan, Donald Smith, Some Dummyhead, Lufan, The King, Curry, Link Octavian, Philip, BVS, Vikram Bao, Commander Farsight, Atomica, Devin Lashin, Muki Mocha, Rena, Nathan Strong, Lady Neo, Joey Danze, Sayed Assad, Coda CMF, Kamiya Smidge, and Benjamin Savage. Thank you to all of our cool and weird bots as well. You guys are amazing. I'm gonna see you guys on the next one. Don't do anything I wouldn't do while I'm gone, okay? Catch you later.